And then the child learns that their needs, their emotions, their themselves are not important. But what is more important, what is more valuable is the addiction, the problem, the situation. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's your girl Colleena Carlisle, and I'm back with another video. So last week we talked about signs that you may be codependent. So about 10 signs that you may be codependent. So today I want to talk a little bit about how a person becomes codependent. What's the origin of codependency? Where does it come from? Okay. So codependency is a learned behavior. It's something that's learned in early childhood. It's something that we learn from our caregivers. It's something that we pick up as a protective part. Okay. It's like a protective part, a personality that in behaviors and actions and habits that we adopt to protect ourselves from what it is that we're trying to hide or kind of seal away. And so what we're typically trying to do when we develop these protective parts is trying to protect ourselves from the fear of abandonment, the fear of rejection. Okay. And so the fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment, those are fears that are developed in early childhood. And so when a child grows up in a family that is dysfunctional, okay, there's maybe addiction there, there's abuse there, there's neglect there, there's an absent parent there, the child can grow up feeling neglected, feeling abandoned, not getting every single need met, specifically their emotional needs met. Okay, so the child grows up with an emotional deficit. They're not able to process emotions well. They're not able to develop themselves well. Okay, because as a child, everything was wrapped around the family's dysfunction, the family's addiction, or whatever was going on in that child's life. Okay, so let's kind of roll back a little bit. What are some types of family dynamics, family enmeshments, things that can happen in a child's earlier years that can cause them to become codependent? So a couple examples. The first one could be the child grows up with a family member who has an alcohol addiction. Okay, maybe it's, let's just say dad's an alcoholic, right? Dad's an alcoholic. Dad's abusive when he becomes an alcoholic. Dad is just not there. He's not tending to the child. The dad may be verbally abusive to the mom, to the child, and the child witnesses this. Okay. And let's say that in this family, everything is surrounded by this addiction. Mom's on edge because of dad's addiction. Siblings are on edge. Everybody's just like focused on this problem, this issue. And so what happens is that the focus is solely on the issue, that the development, the emotional, the mental development of the child is ignored. Okay. And then the child learns that their needs, their emotions, their themselves are not important. But what is more important, what is more valuable is the addiction, the problem, the situation. And because of that, the child can adopt this personality that they are not important, that their emotions are not important, or they don't know how to connect, to communicate, to emotionally develop, mentally develop in a healthy way, okay, or process things in a healthy way. So another example of this is a child growing up in a home where they felt neglected. Okay, maybe mom and dad were there, but they were always working. They were workaholics. They were not focused on the child. Or and another example is that the parent was not there at all. Maybe dad was gone. Maybe mom was gone. Maybe mom and dad got a divorce. Maybe they left. Whatever the situation may have been, someone was absent, or they both were absent in the home. Okay. And this can cause a child to feel some type of rejection, especially if there was a divorce involved and one of the parents left and never came back. Or it was a situation where even if they weren't married, but dad was gone, he left, dad was no longer in the picture, or mom was gone, mom was no longer there, mom was no longer in the picture. And so as an adult, we can process this as, oh, well, something happened and this happened, right? And it's not a reflection on the child. It's not a reflection on what the child did. But children, because they have a child mindset, they're going to assume that maybe it's because of me, or maybe it's because of the caregiver that stayed. It's a reason why internally for the child, why my parent is not here, why my dad's not here, why my mom's not here. It must be because of me, because I wasn't a good enough child, because I'm not lovable. And then add on top of that, that absent parent then gets another family. Okay. That can even add in more pain, all right, or more rejection, where it's like, oh, daddy does not want me, mom does not want me, she has a whole new family, like I'm not valuable, I'm not important. Why am I not important enough for my dad to want me, or my mom to want me, to not be here with me, right? And this is especially going to happen, or happens, if the dad or mom who left does not still sow into the child that's there, right? You know me, I'm Christian, so I know we live in a world that's like, oh, let's co-parent, it's the norm, like the culture of one parent household. No, it's not normal. Okay, it's not normal. Nowhere in my life has single parent, for me myself even, has I considered it normal. No, I consider what is normal, what we should be living, is how God designed the family, right? God designed the family with a certain hierarchy, with a certain way of being. And so God says it's him, it's the husband, it's the mom, it's the children, right? Or the wife and the children, right? There's a hierarchy. There is a way of that. It's a way that God designed the home for us. Okay. And he designed this way because it brings a healthy balance in the upbringing of children. You have the masculinity from the father, you have the femininity from the mother, you have an equal balance of both. You have the nurturing side of mom, you have the loving side of mom, you have the more authority, the more supportive, protective role of the father. Okay. And depending on what the child is, a boy or a child is a girl, that's going to determine how they relate to both parents, right? You always hear the term daddy's girl or mama's boy, right? Moms are definitely going to usually gravitate more to their boys in a loving standpoint, whereas with girls, daddies are going to gravitate towards the young ladies, right? Because they're pretty much the first love, right? Dads in a young girl's life is their first love. It's the first reflection of how a man should love her, right? And so if dad is absent, dad is not there, she may grow up, or even if he is there, but he's not tending to her in a healthy way, right? She might grow up with a warped or dysfunctional view of what love is between her and another man. And she may grow up looking for the same love and attention that she wanted from her father and other men, okay, or other situations. Or she just may not know truly what is appropriate in a relationship between her and another man. Okay. And there's a whole lot of things that can happen with a young boy with a father not in the home. And that could be just a child growing up or a young boy growing up and not knowing what it means to be a man, not knowing what it means to be able to think like a man, right? Men and women do not think the same. And I know in society, we think that a woman can just raise a young man and that's okay. No, it's not okay. A man has to raise another man. A young man has to raise another young man. The same way a woman has to teach a young woman how to be a woman. A man cannot teach a woman how to be a woman because he has no idea what it means to be a woman. He has never had the body of a woman. He doesn't have the cycle. He doesn't have the hormones. He doesn't have the emotions, the thought processes, the nurturing aspect of her body, of her spirit, her body. It's just completely different. right? In the same way with a man, I do not know how men think, right? Men are able to compartmentalize. Men are able to think in a different way. They're not racing thoughts consistently like a woman is, right? They're just different, right? There's just something different about a man who's truly in his masculine role and something completely different about a woman who's in her feminine role, right? There's just different roles. That's how God designed it. And so a healthy balance of both are needed for the healthy development of children. Okay. So, when a child grows up in a home that's filled with a lot of even toxic abusiveness, alcoholism, drugs addiction, whatever the case may be, neglect, the child can grow up in an environment that is so toxic that they eventually build a tolerance for it. Okay. And this tolerance is what's going to show up in their relationship attractions in their older years or their young adult years. Okay. And so young lady may go after men who are a reflection of her father. If her father was not there, he was emotionally unavailable, she might be attracted to men who are emotionally avoidant, men who are not there. Okay, men who are 1 minute there, 1 minute not there, right? Giving her a little bit of breadcrumbs, maybe calling her a little bit. Maybe dad only called every blue moon. So that's normal to her. That's normal to her. That's what love is to her. And she's willing to accept that in her life because that is what she has received from her own father. That's something that is already normalized to her, right? And the same with a young man, okay? A young man can get comfortable in that role as well, all right? Going after, if maybe mom was verbally abusive and mean and cutthroat and just spoke death with her mouth over her child or over her home, a young man can grow up and be attracted to women who are very dominant, very masculine, very verbally abusive and mean, okay? Because that is what he is normal. That's what's normal to him. He's attracted to women who degrade him, women who don't respect him, women who are just off the chain, right? They're off the chain. So they're attracted to this. They don't necessarily deep down want it, but it's what they're beyond. That's what they're chemically built for, right? Okay. And so the same way those attractions happen are the same way codependent behavior starts to happen. It's a product of trauma. It's a product of their upbringing. All right. And it's a protective part. The fear abandonment that happens because maybe the child needs were not met. The child wasn't fed when the child was needed to be fed. The child wasn't clothed. The child wasn't catered to emotionally. The child was ignored. The child was trying so hard to be successful and be the best student, the best child that they could be, but it was never enough, right? It was never enough for their caregivers, and their caregivers just never paid attention, or dad was not there. Those needs were met, and so the child grows up in this with this tendency, with this thought process, this belief system based off of their family dynamics, that they are not important, that they are not valuable, that they are rejected, that they are not important, right? And that belief system can go and form different types of personality disorders. Does it mean it's going to completely form codependency? No, it can also become narcissism, right? It can become psychopath, sociopath. It's a lot of different things that it can become, right? It can create bipolar disorders, different things like that, right? But codependency is still birthed from similar situations, that similar family dynamic of trauma and toxicity within the family. Okay. And so typically codependent people are going to typically be the children that played the role of a caregiver when they were younger. Maybe mom was an alcoholic, dad was an alcoholic. And so that child had to take care of the other siblings, had to take care of the parent, had to be there for the parent, right? Or that child did anything and everything to be the perfect child, right? Get the perfect grades, get the perfect do the perfect, get the perfect achievements, be the amazing band player or the amazing athlete, whatever the situation may have been. That child tried to seek approval and validation from their parents, or just tried to hold things together, tried to hold the family together. And because of that caregiving, that automatic role as a child of caretaking for other people, trying to fix things, trying to make everything's better, at the same time sacrificing or ignoring and neglecting self. I would like to say neglecting, because self-sacrifice sometimes has to happen, right? Especially as Christians. But the neglect of self, right? Not focusing on what self needs, not focusing on what needs to happen for their own mental, emotional, and physical health. Everything else outside of them becomes more important. And because of that, they lack low self-esteem, low self-worth. And they can also have their low self-esteem and self-worth impacted when they are children, right? If they grew up with caregivers who were verbally and emotionally abusive and told them all the time, you're stupid, you're dumb, you'll never be nothing. I don't even know why you try. I don't care. You're just like your father. You're just like your mother, or you're never going to be anything, or whatever the situation may have been, right? They hear all those things. That is death to a child, right? God calls us to speak life to our children. But sometimes we grow up in these toxic environments, these toxic families where the parent speaks death, right? Right at the young age, you're already speaking ill things over your child's life. And it matters because what a child hears, that socializes, and what the child hears, they adopt that as truth, right? And if they look around their environment and all they see is pain, if all they see is rejection, if all they see is punishment, if they see trauma, they're going to eventually start to download that into their body as true. There's not going to be evidence. They're not even if it's evidence that it's not true, what the caregiver has said or what the person has said to them, they're going to find ways to find the evidence that makes the negative, the death words be true. Okay. All right. So basically, all in all, it comes from trauma. It can come from sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, just unhealthy family relationships, dynamics. Okay. Just growing up in a home where the emotions were not met for the child, the development were not met for the child felt abandoned, the child felt neglected, the child felt like they were a burden, like they were not enough, that they were not loved, that they were not good enough. It's those belief systems, those thoughts that force a child or create a child or push a child to adopt this protective part, which is the the codependent personality. They adopt this personality of the codependent. Okay. And this becomes their protecting part, right? And codependency, what is it? Right? It's the thought process of that. If I ignore myself, if I ignore my needs and help every single one and be a people pleaser, never say no, be a yes man, always do right, always be perfect, always do whatever I can to be there for people, no matter what it takes, I will be worthy. I will be enough. I will be valuable. I will be loved. And this is why codependency becomes such a self-esteem killer, a self-worth killer. Why it even impacts the relationship a person can have with God, because that a person who is codependent starts to allow people to be God, starts to allow people to be in the place of God, in place of idolatry. Okay. They become a pleaser of man instead of a pleaser of God. And when you become a pleaser of man, it's unattainable, right? You can't please men. You can't please people. It's an unattainable goal. Not even God can please people, right? People always find a reason to still be upset with Jesus, be upset with God, right? People are human. They're flawed. right? God is not. And so when a person's self-esteem, their value, their identity is rooted in external factors, what my mom say, what my friends say, what my boss say, what my boyfriend, my husband, my whoever, whatever they say, that is what matters. It doesn't matter what God says. It doesn't matter what even I say, the individual, the person. It doesn't even matter what they say. It doesn't matter if they can look in the mirror and be like, I am beautiful. I am amazingly beautiful. If the trauma is there, if the false belief is there that they are not beautiful, that they are not worthy, they will not believe it. They will be looking in the mirror, and whatever is reflecting back to them, the true image will not be seen, but the false image, the false beliefs, the false words, the death words that were implanted in them at a young age. And the thing with codependency, kind of going back to how they'll grow up and they'll start to attract relationships that are similar to their upbringing. Those relationships will start to also produce trauma, produce pain, produce more evidence for that I'm not enough, that I'm not worthy, that I'm unlovable, self-esteem, because maybe they start to be attracted to narcissism, people who verbally and mentally abuse them, or people who cheat on them, people who don't value them, bosses that don't value them, people that use them, bosses that use them. They will then continue to dig and dig and dig deeper into that hole of destruction, that hole of negative beliefs that they have for themselves. And so that's why it's important when I work with codependents and when I did my own self-healing, my own work, right? The work that God did with me, it took a complete destruction of my old belief system. It took a complete rewiring of my brain, right? Because we gotta pluck and take out every negative thought, and we have to find evidence for what is true. God says you are lovable. He says you are worthy. He says you are enough simply because you are born, simply because you are his child, simply because you are here, that you are enough. It's not because of what you do. It's not because of how you walk. It's not because of how you talk. It's not because of how you show up. It's simply because you're you, because God created you, that you're enough, that you are lovable, that you are worthy, that God knew you when he formed you in your mother's womb, that you are deserving as well of healthy love, especially love that God wants for us, that God is able to provide. Love that is not hurtful and painful and full of records of wrong and maliciousness. No, God said he has plans to prosper us for our future, not to destroy us, but to prosper us. Yes, we will go through trials. Yes, we will go through tribulations. Yes, we will go through hard things. Yes, there will be pain. But you don't have to continue to inflict pain on yourself by being attracted or being involved in relationships that continue to destroy you, or continue to allow yourself to have a belief system that is only destroying you and eating at you day after day, and will only get worse if you don't address it. All it is a false shell of you. It's a protective part. It's not real. It's something meant to keep you from truly reaching your full potential, reaching that full relationship with God. It's something that keeps you in a cycle of addiction, depression, failed relationships, unhappiness, unfulfillment, isolation, and so much more. It's like a jail sentence. It's like you're sentencing yourself to your own mental jail, right? Your own mental jail. And that's not where God wants you. That's not where I would want you. Okay? So now that we know where it's from, where codependency comes from, we'll start to talk about ways we can start to heal, or you can start to get out of it and start to let go of the little pieces of codependency, the habits that are picked up. And we'll break down different habits and the different things and personalities and different behaviors that we pick up with codependency and tackle them one by one. But even just listening to me is never going to be enough, right? It's not. True healing is going to take a lot of work. It's going to take professional therapy work. It's going to take God, definitely take God, your faith, right? It's going to take Him. And it's also going to take you being committed to the painful journey, because it's not an easy journey. It's a painful journey, but it's a rewarding journey once it's over. And so if I can help you and I can support you, continue to tune in with me on this codependency journey in my videos. You can check out my courses that are available on my website. I also have a book that I wrote during my own journey in recovery from codependency, and that's available on Amazon, and I will leave the link for that book below. Remember, you are not alone. This is not the end, and that there is healing, and you will heal. Instead of saying, I'm not there, I don't know, say, I am healing. I will be healed. All right. So if you have not already, please like, share with anyone you know that this may be beneficial to, and follow, subscribe, come along with me on this journey to healing. Okay. So take care. Remember, I love you and God loves you. Bye.